Majority Whip.
Mr. President, some of our Republican colleagues say that America doesn't need President Biden's COVID rescue plan because, quote, the pandemic is nearly over. Funny. I've never heard them say we shouldn't spend money helping tornado victims in their states after the tornadoes were gone. Let me say it clearly. We're not out of the woods yet. I wish we were. 510,000 Americans, maybe more now, have died. The United States has 5% of the world's population. We have 20% of the COVID infections and deaths. Why? Because of poor leadership during the first year of this pandemic. We had a president then, who is now gone, who would announce it was a hoax and it was going to disappear by Easter, downplaying the seriousness of the situation with his fanciful flights about certain chemicals that were going to save us or whether or not we should all be gargling Lysol every morning. It made no sense, and the American people came out of that experience confused and infected with deaths in their family. That was the reality of the first year of this pandemic. There was also another reality which the Republican leaders just alluded to. 12 months ago, we passed something called the CARES Act. It was historic, the largest federal expenditure in the history of the United States of America. Who designed that bill? Well, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, whom I didn't know well, but apparently had some skill as a negotiator, because he managed to not only speak for President Trump, but to negotiate a bipartisan package in March of last year called the CARES Act for $2 trillion. Came to the floor of the Senate, vote 96-0. Every Democrat voted for the COVID rescue plan of the Trump administration a year ago. Every Democrat. The second major bill occurred in December, $900 billion, designed to help us through the first 3 months of this year. Again, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin at the table on behalf of President Trump, negotiating with Democrats and Republicans, and it came to the floor of the Senate, and this time, 92 votes in favor of it, including every Democrat, and 6 Republicans voted no. So you see, when it came to COVID rescue plans under the Trump administration, the Republicans were happy to ask us to join them, and we did. Oh, some people said we're giving a political advantage here or there or the other place, but those arguments didn't prevail on the Democratic side. The nation came first. The pandemic came first. Unemployed people and businesses struggling came first. And we voted that way. Then came a new president, Joe Biden, elected November 3rd, despite the denial of some. It was a reality, and he took this pandemic and faced it squarely. No excuses about hoaxes or it's going to go away or I've got a favorite chemical that'll save everybody's life. He faced it squarely. He accepted the responsibility as President of the United States to tell the American people the truth. And the first thing he told them, we should not stop in our efforts to end this pandemic and put America back on its feet. So he made a proposal with at least $160 billion in it for buying vaccines, administering these vaccines, and distributing them across the United States. I would think that everybody would agree with that as a starting point. It wasn't the end point. The cash payment promised by the Trump administration and agreed to by most Democrats, he wanted to keep his word on that, $1,400 more for families all across America. He talked about state and local aid, and I can tell you that is more than a theoretical exercise in my state of Illinois. We need help. The expenses of COVID-19 and the lost revenue by our shrunken economy have taken their toll on my state and into the cities across the state. I just got off a Zoom call with a dozen small towns in Illinois. They're all down from my neck of the woods. Great folks, doing their best, struggling under COVID-19. And they asked me, are you going to send us any help? And I said, President Biden has made his American Rescue proposal. If we can pass it, help is on the way. Assistance just won't go to Springfield, our state capital, or to Chicago, which does need help, but to the cities across our state and across our nation. That's included in this bill too. Help for our schools, included in this bill too. The list goes on, and it's an important list because it really highlights the priorities of recovery in the United States. Now, President Biden and all of us heard the news a day or two ago when the governors of Texas and Mississippi, in full-throated denial of the reality of this pandemic, basically took off all the limitations on businesses and on individuals. No more mask requirements. Let's open up everything all the way. The president was right. That was not a smart choice. It was not a wise choice. We're up against it, and we've got to remain united in our effort to defeat this coronavirus. And so this week, in a day or two, President Biden's American Rescue Plan will come to the floor. Will we have another bipartisan roll call, 96-0, 92-6? I'm afraid not. As of this moment, and I hope it changes, no single Republican senator has expressed an interest in voting for this bill. Not one. I hope it changes, and it could. Some senators at the last minute, I think, will realize this is the right way to go. Meanwhile, the Republican leader comes to the floor every day and mocks this plan, a Democratic wish list, a liberal wish list, Nancy Pelosi's wish list. This is the American people's wish list. 80% of the American people support what President Biden is trying to do. The leading economists have told us we have to do this. If we don't inject money into this economy to restore its energy and future, we will pay for it, not just for months to come, but far beyond. It's a situation that every parent knows when they go to the doctor, to the pediatrician, with their little boy or little girl with an earache, and he says, I'm going to give you some antibiotics. Now, this is a 5-day prescription. This little boy is going to start feeling better on the second day, and by the third day, he's going to be playing as usual. And you're going to think, well, he doesn't need the rest of these antibiotics. Don't make that decision. Keep giving him the full dose of medicine to get well completely, or he may lapse back into it again and get sick all over again. And so you stick with it, even when your little boy's running rings around you, or little girl is getting ready to get on her tricycle, because that's what the doctor said, and that was the right thing to do. That's the same thing with this. If we accept the Republican argument that this pandemic is really over, if we accept the argument of the governor of Texas of that was yesterday, we don't have to worry about it tomorrow, if we take that approach, we could have a disastrous result. We could be back in trouble again in just a few weeks. I hope we don't. I hope we come together in the Senate, preferably on a bipartisan basis, and help the president get us through this pandemic. This is our chance. We have no greater responsibility than to put an end to this pandemic, put the economy on its feet, get the kids back in school, and let grandparents visit those grandkids again. That is part of getting America back where it needs to be. We need bipartisan support. As Democrats, we provided that support to a Republican president. Now that we have a Democratic president, will our Republican senators do the same? I yield the floor.